So there's two sessions in every day like this. There's the one before lunch and the one after lunch. And both of them are every presenter's nightmare, because the one before lunch, everybody's sitting there thinking, all I really want to do is get out there and get some food. And the one after lunch, everyone's sitting there thinking, that was a wonderful lunch. Why do I have to sit here? I'd love to close my eyes and go to sleep. So I think I've got the better half. But I hope you've had a good morning. I hope you found it an interesting and thought-provoking. It's probably what I would like to think. And it's opened up your minds to some ideas and some challenges. You know who to go to if you want a ticket to Mars. You know who to go to if you want an Azure platform, and you know who to go to if you want SAP. So hopefully you've got some clear direction. But I think what I wanted to do was give you some insight into my thoughts on how do we build a growth story, specifically in Malaysia, taking some context from what we've heard, and pulling together some of the insights that we have. We live in one of the most exciting parts of the world at the moment. It is growing at a phenomenal rate. We haven't seen, it's unprecedented. And it grew by 5.2%. It will grow by 5.2% in the next 5 years, which is faster than it grew in the previous 5 years. And that's across Southeast Asia as a whole. It's also the region that has a growing educated workforce, a growing middle class, and 60% of the population are way younger than me. They're under 35 years of age. And that is massive potential. And nowhere else in the world has anyone got all the factors coming together like Southeast Asia has. And it's for that reason that all the economists are saying that this ASEAN region is going to become the fourth largest economy in the world by 2030. And that's quite a thought. That means we're living in what's going to be one of the fastest growing parts of the world and is already moving in that direction. It wasn't that long ago that people were talking about the fact that China would become the second largest economy, and there were a lot of skeptics around at the time. I'm not skeptical. I think it's going to happen. And that will put the whole ASEAN region effectively behind the United States, China, and the European Union as number 4. So that's amongst the big league. If we put that into a Malaysian context within Southeast Asia, this is the third largest economy with a great legacy and great history. And in fact, Adriana and I were discussing earlier about the space program that was started in Malaysia. And she was talking about the time that it was done and how forward-thinking the Prime Minister of the day was. And I said, well, he's still the Prime Minister. But we've got a situation where the International Monetary Fund is saying that the performance, the economics, everything is positive. The country's growth is very much in line with the region. So we're looking at economic growth that'll be above 5% over the past 5 years, and it's only going to get higher as we go forward. The GDP was 4.7% last year. And I think what's more important is that the financial sector is resilient, because without money, there's not much we can do. And that strength of sound profitability, all the key indicators that finance look at are in a great place. So we should be sitting here with a high level of confidence about what's possible for us as business leaders and organizations in Malaysia today, what we can do. Behind the growth is the workforce and the people. And we touched on the importance of the millennials. We touched on the importance earlier when we were having the conversation. So we've got 80% of the population are internet users, and we've got, as we saw from the MDEC pictures, a high usage of Facebook, with very high number of the population actually on social media, which is 24 million. So if you take all of that, you also then consider the fact that the digital economy contributed 18.3% in 2017, if you go back that far, and by the time you get to 2020, it's going to be more than 20% of the economy. So that's 1/5. So the trend is pretty clear. We have a very stable financial situation. We have technology driving what's happening, and we have people that are significant players in terms of what that future is going to look like, in terms of the capability. But there are some challenges. So as organizations in Malaysia, we all face challenges. The rules are not clearly defined anymore. We all know that. We've talked about the various disruptors. We know that the disruptors are out there. We know that it's probably going to come from two millennials that probably spend most of their day working in a coffee shop on a laptop, and that's where the challenge is going to come from. Here in Malaysia, I mentioned it earlier, we have disruptors, and the example of Grab disrupting Uber is probably the biggest one and most visual one. But we need to be conscious of that. We need to be saying, as companies, how do we deal with this disruption, and how do we make the kinds of changes that some organizations have been able to make to shift ourselves into the future? And this is where we need to make sure we leverage the technology, but not just technology, intelligent technology. Let's leverage the artificial intelligence, let's leverage the machine learning, and use that to drive the next generation economy. It's not going to come from doing things the way we did before. It's not going to come from running an SAP system and having dozens of users manually capturing everything. It's going to come from having real insight into what's going on in our business and changing the business processes because we have artificial intelligence to do that. If we look at the economic force in the market, there's a couple of key things for us to note. We're going to see significant changes in the human tasks. So with 60% of them being automated by 2025, that is mind-boggling. If you think you've got management challenges today, that is a massive management challenge. The transformation of the organization that needs to take place when, as we saw earlier today, there are jobs coming which we don't even know about yet, and there are definitely jobs that we know about today that won't be there tomorrow. So that transformation we have to go through is mind-bogglingly complex. We also have 99% voice accuracy and video recognition by 2020. This, for me, actually creates one of the biggest threats for Southeast Asia, which is Africa. Because Africa has got a high illiteracy problem. When you take away the need to read and write and all you have to do to talk, to engage with technology, you fundamentally transform things. So watch that space. And if we look at the image recognition, I think we've all seen it, we've probably played with it. There was a round at some point where people were putting in photographs of Trump and then seeing what would come back from Google. Try it out, try different images. You get some remarkably entertaining things. I know you can, it's a great dinner party activity, right? Pick a name, type it into Google, see what images come back. But with the technology becoming that powerful, it opens up things that we haven't been able to do. And we heard about it in the context of security, but it also has an impact in terms of inspection. It has the ability to tackle all sorts of problems that we haven't been able to address yet. And lastly, the value that's going to be created is approximately in the region of 3.5 trillion. That is a huge amount of money, which all of us are going to have to do something to make happen, but equally we get to participate in. So you've got a whole range of demands coming in terms of growth. You've got enterprises which are needing to shift to determine how do we grab hold of the coattails of that growth and really make it something that we can benefit from as organizations. And more importantly, how do we leverage the intelligent technologies that are available to us to actually get a slice of that 3.5 trillion? So together, if we look at, and I really mean this in that context, if we look at all of us together as Malaysian companies, how do we go about achieving those breakthroughs? We're going to have to look at the concept of the intelligent enterprise. How do we adopt that? How do we leverage those? And how can all of you take the game-changing outcomes way faster and more effectively? So it's all going to be about doing way more with less. We know what's going to happen from a marketplace and in terms of the technology and what it can do. So how can we then make people's jobs more meaningful? And how can we also make sure that they're actually investing the time on adding substantial value, not doing the clerical portion of the job? Because that's the part that will disappear. So now we can focus on how do we drive the business forward faster. And how do we deliver the best-in-class experience so that all those words that were flashed up at you at the beginning of the day start to come. I love the one, bliss. I think that's my favorite. And how do we then reinvent our businesses? Because they will be different. And rather than waiting for someone to attack our business, how do we take ourselves into totally different markets by changing business models, reinventing the way we do business, and leveraging a broader community of partners and technologies to take us there? So, from the perspective of SAP, it's now the time, because if you wait, someone else will do it first. So if you don't start disrupting, you will be disrupted. And if you don't focus on innovation, you'll be left behind and you will not get the growth. So what I'm hoping is that just from this morning, you've got some insight into the art of the possible and got some insight into where you could go. And what I would like you to do is take the time to go out into the exhibition that we have and really dig into some of the detail and understand what can be done. Because there really is some great opportunity for many, many organizations, and we've got some pretty cool, innovative stuff which I think you should take a serious look at. And even if it isn't relevant for your business, hopefully it sparks that idea of how you could leverage that back into your business. So with that, what I'd like to say is we have the opportunity as a group to actually write the growth story for Malaysia. The foundation is fantastic. All the ingredients are there. The challenge for all of you and for me is how do we put it all together and make it work such that we can convert intellect, effort, people into the outcomes that we want to see. And not just to make Malaysia run better and to tap into that, but actually to improve the lives of Malaysians. Because if we do this right, as a joint group of people, we really can fundamentally change Malaysia as a country. And that's the piece that I would like to leave you with as a thought. So thank you all for coming. Make the most of the exhibition and enjoy lunch. I didn't go over time, right?